And we record. Awesome. So welcome everyone to today's DeepSense Discovery Session. My name is Lucia and I am a Communication Specialist at DeepSense. And these kind of sessions are meant to really support businesses, students, and other organizations with an understanding of how to use data and artificial intelligence. Now, before we get started, I would just like to begin by acknowledging that I'm currently in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and this territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship. Now, today's discovery session is very applicable to companies and students who are working with organizations in a technology role. So worldwide, end users are spending about $332 billion in cloud services. Many organizations around the world have adopted to the work from home model, which relies heavily on web-based cloud services. Business requirements largely drive computing infrastructure requirements. When we work with companies, we often talk about how data volumes grow and how the need to access data in real time requires very different cloud support than long-term data storage. So we know this can be a very complex topic, and we have our very own Dr. Lu Yang here to shed some light. So you'll have opportunities to ask your cloud-related questions. So Dr. Yang, he is our DeepSense Infrastructure Specialist. He manages the $3.5 million high-performance computing infrastructure that DeepSense owns. And without his leadership, our systems would not be available to train complex AI and machine learning models. For more than 14 years, Lou has managed complex high-performance computing infrastructure, so he knows his way around a data center. Lou obtained his Ph.D. in computer science at the University of New Brunswick and has taught computer science both at UNB and at Dalhousie University. So if you have any questions for Lou, you can definitely throw them in the Q&A buttons you'll see at the bottom. And feel free to use the chat and say hi to other people here. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Lou.
Thank you, Lucia. Okay, my name is Lu Yang. As you see on the slide, today's topic is business considerations to use cloud. This topic, this presentation is for people who are thinking about cloud, even though they haven't done anything about the migrating to cloud. Even they still have their on-premise systems, but because cloud is the future, we need to think about it. We need to plan in advance, and we need to get some knowledge and the terms, concepts about cloud before we even think about it. Planning should be happening much longer than the migration. So it could take about, say, half a year to even 1 to 2 years about the planning before you successfully migrate to the cloud. So looking at later during the presentation, when I show you the 14 steps migration to cloud, you will see, oh, if I want to go through these steps, I do need to plan earlier. Okay. Oh, sorry. What is this? Just 1 second. It marks my slides. Actually, I don't want to mark it. Okay. So today's agenda is like this. First, I want to explain why is everyone talking about cloud. I want to show you the what the cloud is, where you are accessing the cloud, where does the cloud exist, and also I'm going to explain the benefits of using cloud. Secondly, I'm going to introduce and explain the 14-step cloud migration checklist. I will go through all the steps, but briefly, so you can at least have an idea, oh, I need to go through this many processes before I am successfully on the cloud. And then I'm going to tell you about your data on the cloud. And then lastly, I'm going to explain a little bit more about the security on the cloud. I think maybe that's the most important thing you want to learn, the security of cloud. So why is everyone talking about cloud? Right now, you may have the on-premise systems, right? On-premise systems can mean a huge data center or just several servers or systems on the desks of your office. Those are all on-premise systems. So they physically stay in your office or your data center. You can touch them and you can use them directly, provision them directly, install things directly. That's the on-premise systems. However, cloud-based systems, we cannot touch them. We don't know, or we kind of know where they are, but we cannot see them. We cannot touch them. Actually, in the real life, there must be data centers behind the cloud. For example, for Amazon's cloud web service, AWS, when you use the web service provided by AWS, you must be using something in some data center at some place on the globe. For example, Los Angeles, Virginia, or Hong Kong, or Japan. There are so many data centers across, in the whole world owned by AWS or Google or Microsoft Azure. They have a lot of data centers providing cloud services. You use their data centers, you use their web services running in those data centers. Okay, so I'm going to introduce more about the data center so you can see how big how wide those data centers cover in the whole world. So this is AWS's locations of their data centers. There are regions. Region is a bigger concept. Within regions, there are availability zones. So in one region, for example, US East is a region. In this region, they have A, B, C, D, E, F, like this, the availability zones. So in those zones, they have multiple data centers. So the data centers in the zones and in the regions are all connected. So we can have data sharing, replication, etc. This is the Microsoft Azure's data center across the world. This is Google's data centers across the world. They are trying to build a lot more data centers to cover more spaces, more places in the world. So if you are closer to a data center that exists say in your countries, in Canada, we have data centers in Montreal. Here you can see most big cloud providers have data centers in Montreal, in Canada. So that's easier for us to put our data onto the cloud and still within Canada, not outside Canada. You know, there are a lot of like laws, policies about the data. If you are from the government, your data may not be allowed to stay in a place that's not in Canada. There are lots of this kind of policies you need to follow. Okay, so what's the benefits of cloud computing? So we know we are using those big cloud providers' services. We put our data onto their storage. We can run a lot of computations on their using their computation resources. What's the benefit we can get? First, it's the cost efficiency. You don't need to buy anything, right? You don't need to buy any hardware and software. You just use everything provided by the cloud providers. You don't need to pay a whole lot of money upfront to buy a huge system, but actually you were not 100% sure if the system will be 100% used by your users. So there could be a lot of waste. But using the cloud computing or cloud storage, you just pay what you use. It's like a pay-as-you-go plan of your phone. And it's on-demand usage. When you use it, you can launch a virtual machine. When you don't use it, you terminate it, and you won't be charged anything. So money-wise, it's a very good choice. Scalability. So when you have your physical machines physically in your data center or in your office, if you have one machine today, at the end of the day, I feel, oh my gosh, this machine is too busy. I need to buy one more. You need to go to the store, or you need to go to your vendors and you need to discuss what kind of machine I want to buy, or you don't even know what kind of machine you want to buy. You need to get their advices, right? So on the cloud, you can always launch a new machine, either with the same kind of configurations as the one you have, or it can be scaled up. That means you can have a lot more cores of CPUs. You can have a lot more memories to accommodate your heavy load from your users. If you don't need that high-end or fancy machines, you just can launch a very, very common machine that could satisfy your requirements. And it's very, very cheap. And if you don't use it, you just terminate it. So scalability is a very, very good benefit, attracting a lot of users using it. And security, I'm going to talk about security later because we have one section about this. Disaster recovery. Your data on the cloud is replicated. It doesn't just stay at this location. So when you upload the data at this location, your data is replicated, and the replicated version could be in a different region. So for example, if your data is in Toronto and the replicated data is in Montreal at 2 different data centers, in case there is a disaster like an earthquake or something happened to Toronto and the data center is totally destroyed, you still have your data in Montreal. So I don't need to explain more about this, so you can understand easily data disaster recovery, right? In your own data center, if you may have your own backup systems in the data center. However, they are in the same location, in the same room. If any disasters happens, you lose everything, even though you have a backup. Your backup system was also destroyed. Mobility. You can access cloud from anywhere, from any devices, your cell phone, your pad, your laptop, your desktop, as long as you have internet and a web browser. All cloud providers provide their web services via the web browsers. That's very easy to use, right? So you can always access your data from anywhere in the world and from any devices that has internet. Flexibility. Flexibility is correlated to mobility and cost and scalability. You can always launch new machines, terminate old machines. You can always scale your machines. You can access your data and do the computation from anywhere in the world. So that's the flexibility. Okay, so we know the so many benefits of cloud providers, of cloud computing. So who are the leaders in the world of cloud? The top one is AWS. And the second one is Microsoft. And the third one is Google. Alibaba and Tencent, I think they're in China. And Oracle, I think I didn't see many people using Oracle. And I don't know why IBM is so low in this ranking. The three biggest cloud providers take more than half of the market of cloud computing. And in this term, I'm using AWS to teach cloud computing at Dalhousie. It doesn't mean AWS would be the best to choose for you. When you choose your cloud to use, you have to analyze your business, which one is the best for you. And I'm not promoting AWS here because we just use AWS for the teaching. Now let's go through the 14-step cloud migration checklist, so you can see what you need to do if your company, or if you are also like a startup, if you want to think about this, if you want to plan this. The migration may happen in 2022 or even 2023. So you need to think about that. You need to learn some concepts before that. First, you need to assess the apps to migrate. In your organization or your company, you may not migrate everything. Like in the government of Nova Scotia, I know a lot of departments are trying to migrate to cloud. They don't migrate everything to the cloud. They only migrate the things that they don't want to keep it on their systems. For example, if you are running your web server on your system right now, and you know your systems will be out of warranty in a year or in 1.5 years. So you need to start planning. Am I going to buy new machines? Am I going to buy new storage, etc.? So you need to think about, maybe we want to move these web services, web servers, web applications to the cloud. We don't need to buy anything. So you can start thinking about it. So you need to assess what you want to migrate, what should be migrate for your business. Second, you need to identify and engage stakeholders. You need to get your stakeholders notified, and you need to educate them why this should be happening. What's the benefit? How would we save money? The stakeholders need to understand to some point about cloud computing. You need to convince the stakeholders this is beneficial to your business. And then you need to select a cloud deployment model. This sounds like very technical, right? Because you need to select from the public cloud, private cloud, or hybrid cloud. What is public cloud? AWS is a public cloud. Google Cloud is a public cloud. Azure, Microsoft Azure is a public cloud. What's a private cloud? If the data center at DeepSense or computer science of Dalhousie, so if their data center provides the cloud services to a group of people with very limited access to the systems, that's a private cloud. It's only for the people of computer science at Dalhousie. That's a private cloud. Hybrid cloud is we can use both our private cloud at computer science and also public cloud providers web services. So that's a hybrid. So to do this, you need to have some people with the expertise. They need to analyze what kind of deployment model is the best for your business. Number 4, calculate the costs and savings. After you know what apps you're going to migrate and what data you want to put onto the cloud, you can easily go to the those cloud providers' website. There are always the user interface. You can estimate how much you're going to pay using what kind of services. They will give you an estimate how much you're going to pay to use that web service for how long you're going to use it, for the length of the time you're going to use it. You can get a rough idea how much money you're going to pay. And then you need to identify the processes that need to change. This would introduce cloud-based apps can change a number of business processes. So you need to ensure these processes are identified and updated. Your systems are not in your office anymore. It's on the cloud. So the process, how you access your web applications, and your stakeholder, how your stakeholder can see it's running, how your user will be see it running, how your user will be access it, is These are all will be changed. Next one, you need to update internal policies. The internal policies include a lot of things, right? When you have a data center, you have policies of who can access the data center because physically it's there, right? But now it's not there. It's on the cloud. You need to update your policies. And who can access your web service on the cloud? You need to limit the people who can access it. And then you need to plan for network readiness. Network readiness always means like DNS names, firewalls, a lot of public IPs, private IPs, internal network for security, etc. You need to plan this. Communicate with users. You need to let your users know, now we are on the cloud. When you access our services in the future, you have to use this DNS name. After you log in, you will see this interface. And then you will do what? You need to, you may have a public wiki at this point for your users. And then you need to reconfigure connected systems. Your database, your computation, your front end, and your back end are now all on the cloud. So you need to reconfigure the connected systems on the cloud. You need to run a pilot migration. So you need to do some testings using some simple things and not risky tasks to test your migration. So migrate by department. We should keep the cloud migration as simple and straightforward as possible. Migrate similar users together by department. We need to modularize them, separate them, migrate one by one to make sure every migration is successful before you migrate the next department. Step 12, we need to perform post-migration testing. After you migrate all the stuff onto the cloud, you still need to do the tests before you release it to users. Now is the time you provide user training. You need to, I know you have your public wiki already, right, at some point, but you still need to train your users. Last, you need to remove the on-premise infrastructure. Removing the on-premise infrastructure, also you need to follow a procedure. For example, for the data, the hard drive, users' data are on the hard drives in the data center. Those hard drives should be destroyed by some professional department. You need to make sure that will be happening. It's not just you put the hard drives on the hallway, people can just pick them up. Okay, from step 1 to step 14, you can see if you in the real life, if you go through these steps, how many meetings you will have to have, and how many people you have to get involved, and how many education you have to get. So if you want to do this, you definitely need a person with the expertise, the skills, and the concept and knowledge to do this. So at Dalhousie, like I just said, I'm teaching cloud computing at Dalhousie at computer science. So we have a whole class of grad students learning cloud computing. So if you need help, you should let DeepSense know. Our students can help you, and I can also help you. I can direct my students the directions, how they can help you. Some companies already talk to us about they ask a lot of questions, their risks, how even some very basic concepts, it's all welcome. Just talk to DeepSense about your questions. Our students can do the intern and analyze the problems, and they can also give you some future ideas about which cloud you should use, etc. They learn much more than I talk today. They learn a lot about, they can even develop the web applications for you, for your company, from front end to back end to database. They can do that. So for these basic, relatively more basic concepts, they are very good. Okay, so a big concern is about your data. We always the two biggest concerns are data and security. So what's the status of my data on cloud after I migrate to cloud? So you're pretty new to cloud storage, aren't you? So how you put the data onto the cloud, right? You don't need, I said, you don't have any, hardware. How do you upload your data onto the cloud? Normally, your data on the cloud, every cloud providers provide tools. Basically, those tools are web interfaces. You can upload your data from your local machine using that web interface to upload it to their storage. They provide different kinds of storage according to your requirements. I'm going to talk about that later. So first, let's look at the use cases of your data on the cloud. You may use the cloud as a data storage. When you use it as a data storage, you have a lot of data. You want to keep it in a safe place. And in your business, your employees may access the data to develop applications. For example, in the ocean industry, you have a huge amount of data, right? Ocean data is huge. And you need to make the best usage of the data. You want to find get a lot of insight from the data. So like what DeepSense does, they help the ocean industries to find insights of their data. So dig out the value of the data. So we need a lot of for example, machine learning, deep learning models. We need to train the data. So when we train the data, we need to access the data. We need to use, say, the virtual machines with those AI frameworks installed on those virtual machines to access the uploaded data on the cloud. So we need storage and we need to access them. Sometimes we just need to backup our data. We don't access them very often. We just need a backup for the safety reason. We have one copy, but here we want another copy to back up the data. Another use case is remote working. If your company is an international company, you can put your data on the cloud so your employees can access data from all over the world, even when they are traveling, right? It's so convenient. And the last one is information sharing. So sometimes you just put things there for your company, for stakeholders, your users to see. They may not work on the data, but they need to see the data. There are three categories of your data of the data storage provided by cloud providers. You should analyze what category your data would be fall into. So there's hot, cool, and cold storage. So hot means you would access the data frequently, and the storage cost is higher and access cost is lower. You access frequently, so your access is cheaper relatively, but the storage cost is higher. For cool storage, that means the access frequency is low, storage cost is lower, and access cost is higher because you are not supposed to access your data very often. So this data, sometimes we use this kind of storage as our backup data to back up our data. So cloud providers provide different storage types you can choose for your different kind of data. So for the cool data storage, you may just access your data, say, every 3 months or every 4 months, not often at all. Last one, cold, is for archiving. So you just put the data over there. You don't access them often, say just once a year. That's cold storage. So access frequency is the lowest. However, the storage cost is also the access cost is the highest, but the storage cost is the lowest. So you need to analyze what kind of data, what kind of storage you want to use for your data. So is cloud secure? I think this is a very big question. A lot of people don't trust cloud. However, you may not know Netflix. Do you know Netflix doesn't have their data center? Netflix uses AWS as their data center. So all the movies you watch and all the recommendations you get are from AWS. Netflix uses AWS to store their movies and also use AWS's machine learning and deep learning frameworks to calculate what kind of movies they want to recommend to you. So everything of Netflix is on AWS. You may not know this, right? But you can, this is a very, very famous or big use case of cloud computing. So there are many other big names. Moderna is so famous now because of the COVID-19, right? Moderna uses AWS. MBNA, MBNA, is it MBNA or Capital One? It should be MBNA, the credit card company. They also use the cloud computing. There are a lot of more big companies using cloud. Before we talk about the security of cloud, let's look at the security of your on-premise systems, or you can think about your systems at home, your laptop or your desktop on your desk. It's not connected to the outside world, okay? So what concerns do we have? Who can access the data within organization? So my systems is in the office, in our company. Who can access it within our company? And who can access the data outside the organization? Yeah, we may cooperate with other people to do some work. We need to give access to some other people who can access it, right? And will the hard drives break, or do we need to buy the second or even the third hard drive to back up data? Is our data backed up immediately when modifications happen? And if disaster happens and we lose all the hard drives, what can we do? For your on-premise systems and also your personal computers, laptops, you also have these concerns, right? This is not cloud. So now let's look at the cloud. When your data is on the cloud, you have more concerns. The first thing is that, oh my God, the data is not on my hand anymore. I cannot even see the hard drive, right? I cannot access my data directly. Click on my C drive of my Windows system, I can see all my data. It's not on your hand anymore. Is internet safe? Of course, no, it's not safe. It's not 100% safe. Where is my data? Is my data in the data center in Montreal or in Toronto or in Los Angeles or in New York City? Who can access it? Because it's accessed over internet. It sounds like everybody can access it, right? Are cyber criminals in action? True, cyber criminals are in action all the time, but we have our security measures. We can do a lot of things to make it secure. Do I share storage with others? Yes, you do. When your data is on the cloud, you share storage with others, but your data is encrypted. There is a boundary between your data and other people's data. If disaster happens, do I still have my data? Yeah, that's a very important point, right? When there's a disaster in Toronto, like I just said, my data was replicated and it stays in Montreal. I still have my data. Okay, how can I upload my data to cloud? There's so many ways. You can use the web interface. You can use a lot of tools, but you may ask, my data is so huge. How can I upload? It take years to upload. You can mail your hard drive. Those big cloud providers, they all provide physical hard drives for you to mail. You can mail the data to them. They can upload the data onto the cloud. Okay, so let's give a little bit more information about these concerns. So your data is not in your hand. It's on a hard drive in some data center. you can choose the data center. You can choose the data center in Montreal for sure, because you have the right to choose it. Internet is not safe, but we have so many ways to keep our internet safe. Like when you use your data belong to Dalhousie in Dalhousie's network, is it safe? It's also internet, right? We use VPNs, and then we use authentications, username, password, etc., right, to keep your data safe. Who can access it? We can always control the access list. And the cyber criminals, there are so many security measures, cyber security policies in every organization. They need that. So we can always have those things to be implemented to prevent your data from being stolen. I share story with others. Yes, the storage you are using on the cloud are virtual storage, but eventually they will be on some physical disks. For those virtual storage you are using, there are boundaries. There is access of who can access it. There is a limit who can access it, and which network can access it, which person can access it, which VPN can access it, right? There are many layers of security measures you can do. As to the disasters, I already explained, and also how to upload your data to cloud, I already explained. For very big data, you can just mail hard drives. Okay, so there's no place like 127.0.0.1. I don't know if how much you understand about this IP address. This IP address is the IP address of your local machine. Whenever you type this IP address in your web browser, that means your local machine. Your local machine is the safest place to you, right? Because it's local. But as long as you go beyond local, you are not that safe. So cloud is the future, definitely is the future. You have to face it and you have to learn it sooner or later. Big cloud providers provide complete and granular security approaches. I don't want to mention all the details, the tech details, how they implement how they provide those security measures to users. There are very, very, fine-grained, granular security approaches. You do need people with expertise to do that. That need knowledge about the network, access control, firewall, etc. A lot of technologies and knowledge about the IT security. And it's a shared responsibility of security, both from the cloud provider and also from the cloud consumer. It's not just the cloud provider's task. Cloud consumer also need to understand everything, what cloud provider provides, what I can implement. So which cloud provider should I select? That's a very hard question. So we need to, when we select the cloud provider, we need to think about which cloud provider most closely aligns with your existing architecture and engineering acumen. And under the shared responsibility model, you need to ensure you have the resources and the know-how to properly secure your part of the cloud. Okay, basically this is the whole thing I want to talk today. So you have any questions? I know there could be a lot more things to cover. This is a very basic, very general introduction about cloud. If you have interest, I can feel free to tell me, we can talk.
Thanks, Lou, that was great. I'm looking at the Q&As, and so I'll bring them up as we get going. So one thing, I'm going to read over the question while you're answering, because I am not good with doing two things at once. One thing I'm curious about, Lou, is how do companies know what they're looking for when they want to scale? So, you talked about hot and cold, and you talked about some kind of data, but is there kind of an evaluation I should think about as my needs grow? What are some of those things I might want to think about as a company?
Are you talking about the scalability?
Yeah, so maybe today I only have a certain amount of storage. Is there something I need to think about? What questions should I ask myself as I think, well, today I have 12 terabytes of data. What things should I think about? Because I don't know what the future holds.
You know, the one thing that's about the cloud is that the scalability is very easy. So today you have 12 terabytes of data. Tomorrow you want to upload more. So you upload more, you pay more, and the storage is always there. It's like unlimited. It's always there. You can just upload your data over there. You don't need to worry anything about the backend, the storage. You can just go to the interface and upload your data. I don't know if I answered the question.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, it's one of those things where sometimes maybe, you know, somebody has X number of customers. We work in the ocean sector. So companies sometimes go and they'll collect information and data. And all of a sudden, maybe you have sensors of data and you have one sensor. Well, maybe 2 years from now, you're going to have 20 sensors. So yeah, maybe your needs grow, but you weren't really thinking about your needs growing. But right. So there's always going to be storage there ready for me.
Let me give me one more example. It's not about storage. Let me give you an example about the scalability. So if you are a company selling gifts, apparently Christmas season is your most the business the most busy season in the world in the whole year, right? So if you have your web application on the cloud selling stuff, but during the Christmas your web app is very busy. At this moment, the cloud provider can automatically increase the resources for you. They won't make your web application on that virtual machine super busy and then crash. They will automatically, they have a listener to monitor the load. If the load is too high, they automatically assign new virtual machines to you. So your workload will be evenly distributed. Like the storage is like the same thing.
Got it. Excellent. It's all about balancing that load. Excellent. Yeah. Okay, then we have a question here. You mentioned that data are normally backed up in other regions or zones. I'm working with a company that requires certain types of data to be kept in Canada. Can I control my server data center location with commercial cloud solutions? So for example, I noticed in an earlier AWS slide, Montreal is the only Canadian location. Where would my backups be kept?
You can, when you select the web service you want to use, on the interface, on the web interface, say if you want to launch a virtual machine, you have the selection which region you're going to choose, you're going to use. You can specify that. And for your data, like my wife's department, my wife works for Elections Nova Scotia. They have all their data in Montreal. In either Montreal or Toronto, they are using Microsoft Azure. They run their web applications on that cloud, and they keep their data in Toronto, if I'm not wrong. And I could be wrong. They may have another copy of data in Montreal. Yeah, you can choose.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I don't, oh, just 1 second. Sorry, we have another, oh, we got a cool, thanks. So the only other thing that I think is, is there anything, when students are first learning cloud, and is there anything around how do they know how to decide where to go or what to do? And maybe it's a very loaded question, but let's say I'm a recent graduate. I've become the IT person working at an organization. They have a lot of things on-prem or their current services are pretty restricted. I might be the person who has to go and make some decisions, and maybe I've never done this stuff before. Do you have any resources or suggestions of places they should go to learn a little bit more before they try to make a strategic business decision?
Well, there are so many, I think Google and YouTube are the best teacher. You can always search. Of course, there are too much information. You need to filter the information. There are very good resources, like those big companies. They even AWS, Azure, and Google and IBM, they all provide you if you are planning to migrate, what you should think about, and they give you a lot of free sessions, those webinars, etc., to teach you how to do that, how to plan your storage, how to plan your compute. They provide very good service on that. And my suggestion is that if you work in a company and the company's on-premise systems are already 3 years old, you should think about this. You should start planning. Is there anything you can suggest too around backup plans? So if you're doing a migration and you want to back out, what are some of the other things that you should think about if you're actually moving and migrating? If for backup plans, there are a lot of different architectures, cloud architecture that provide to you. So say if you have your database server, the best solution is that you have your primary database server and you have the two replicas. So as long as there is an update on your primary database server, the replication would happen right away on those two replicas. So you always have 3 copies of your database server. This is because database server, if your database is, the web application access your database all the time, of course, you need to keep all the database servers up to date. The replica should happen all the time. If you just want to back up your data, you need to make a plan, say back up one day, once a day, or once a week. Once a day is a pretty good habit to back up your data. You need to have some backup tools to configure the backup schedule. Got it. We have one more question. The course that you're currently teaching at Dalhousie, what is the learning goal of that course? For that course, this is a very good question. That course is a grad level course. I teach all the basic concepts, terminologies of cloud computing from data center. We learn data center first, and then we learn cloud terminologies, and then we learn cloud delivery model. For example, when you use Gmail, you are using a kind of cloud delivery model. It's SaaS, software as a service. We also have infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, et cetera, et cetera. And then I teach the delivery model, cloud delivery model, like I just explained, the public cloud, hybrid cloud, and private cloud, and the security of cloud, business considerations of cloud, fundamental architectures, advanced architectures. And I also teach students about something about the big data on cloud and DevOps on cloud. To give students, it's not a very high end or very difficult course, but it gives students all the concepts and terminologies of cloud. So from that, after they learn that, they have the ability to acquire more knowledge about cloud. And also they have to do a course project. In that project, they need to develop a working web application using AWS Web Services. They have the front end, they have the back end, they have the business logic, they have the database access using all the AWS Web Services to make it work. So when they go to a company, they already know how I can develop a web application on the cloud. Just the business logic is different. That sounds extremely applicable. And I think when with some of the companies that we meet that are really early stages in their development of their products and services, or they're moving from having maybe sold different types of hardware and actually moving to trying to have some software and data storage, that's exactly the kinds of skills that I think so many companies require and they just don't currently have today. Yeah. You got to thank you for that one, by the way. Thank you. Yeah, I believe every company will eventually thinking about this, about cloud. They cannot avoid it. Agreed. Yeah.
I don't see any other questions. So thank you very much for presenting today. It was very clear. You had lots of fun images as well, and jokes are always welcome and appreciated, especially when we're talking about complex topics. Lucia and I would like to thank you and the rest of the DeepSense team, because you're great at what you do. And then we own infrastructure, but cloud is part of our immediate future too. So it's great to have these conversations. If anyone out there is watching or then watching later on as well, when we post this online, we love to hear more about what else you're interested in learning about. We talk about things like cloud because we know this is really a topic that's come up with the companies that we partner and work with. We also talk about complex AI models and different types of machine learning that is important and critical for growing and adopting AI in Canada. So whatever topics that you think are of interest, please reach out, let us know. Support@deepsense.ca, info@deepsense.ca, or apparently Lou's kind enough to give his email address, so you can ask him some questions too. So thank you very much, Lou, and your time is really appreciated. Have
You're
a great
welcome.
afternoon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.